Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen, who is on a 10-day controversial trip to Latin America, arrived in New York, stopping over in the United States of America en route to Central America, where she will meet leaders of Guatemala and Belize. The Taiwanese president was greeted by pro-Taiwan supporters upon her arrival, while some anti-Taiwan independence demonstrators waving China's red flag also gathered across the street. Tsai, who is expected to stay in New York until Saturday, is expected to meet U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy in California. The New York grand jury probing former U.S. President Donald Trump's alleged role in a hush money scandal is not expected to reconvene on the matter until after the Easter holiday. The grand jury has been hearing evidence from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office about possible crimes related to a $130,000 payment to porn star Stormy Daniels in 2016. If indicted, Trump, who denies an affair took place, would become the first U.S. president to face a criminal charge in court. The U.S. White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre has said that it is unacceptable that the Republicans are saying that nothing can be done regarding rising gun violence in America. This latest statement was made after 6 people died at a Tennessee school earlier this week. The spokeswoman told reporters that First Lady Dr. Jill Biden will attend a vigil to grieve the 3 children and 3 adults shot to death this week at an elementary school. Over the past 2 days, mourners, they've left flowers, balloons, stuffed teddy bears at the gates of the school where the attack unfolded on Monday. South Korea and the United States, they're seeking the extradition of Do Kwon, an international fugitive accused of a multi-billion-dollar fraud. A U.S. indictment announced last week charged Do Kwon, who co-founded Terraform Labs and developed the Terra, USD and Luna currencies, with 2 counts each of security fraud, wire fraud, commodities fraud and conspiracy. South Korean authorities issued an arrest warrant for him last September. He has been charged in Montenegro with forging documents and would be extradited only after a trial and any sentence served in the small Adriatic Republic. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has approved using emergent biosolutions without a prescription. This has paved the way for easy availability of life-saving medication that is used to reverse opioid overdose. Naloxone rapidly reverses or blocks the effects of opioids, restoring normal respiration, especially when given within minutes of the first signs of an overdose. The drug is expected to be available on U.S. shelves and at online retailers by late summer. U.S. National Security spokesperson John Kirby urged Israeli leaders to come up with a compromise as soon as possible following mass protests over legislation to make changes to the judiciary. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stated that he would find compromise with the political opposition over his judicial overhaul and halter the bill for a month. However, after this, he changed his stance overnight due to U.S. President's comments on the matter and said that Israel is a sovereign country that does not make decisions based on pressures from abroad. Argentina's President Alberto Fernandez has said that him and U.S. President Joe Biden are concerned about the health of Pope Francis. Fernandez was in Washington for talks with Biden when the issue of Pope's health was mentioned. Pope Francis was taken to a Roman hospital after complaining of breathing difficulties over the past few days. His latest hospitalization comes ahead of a Palm Sunday service on the 2nd of April that marks the start of a hectic week of ceremonies leading to Easter Sunday on the 9th of April. This throws into doubt whether he will be able to lead them as customary. U.S. President Joe Biden and his Argentine counterpart Alberto Fernandez held a bilateral meeting in the Oval Office at the White House. Biden thanked Fernandez for Argentina's stand on Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the support of Latin American country has demonstrated at the United Nations since the conflict began. Marking 200 years of diplomatic relations between the two, the U.S. President also praised the meeting as an opportunity to increase economic integration on everything from clean energy, critical minerals, technology and security. The United States has condemned the decision by Myanmar's ruling junta to abolish 40 political parties, including the former ruling party, National League for Democracy. State Department Deputy Spokesperson Vedant Patel told the local media that any election without the participation of all stakeholders in Myanmar cannot be considered free nor fair. Britain, Japan and Australia have also expressed their concern over the dissolution of Myanmar's former ruling party and urged a more inclusive process to return the country to democracy. Dozens took to the streets of Mexico to demand justice and accountability after the deadly fire at a migrant detention center that killed 40 migrants on the 27th of March. Rights group activists and migrants held banners reading "They did not die, they were killed" and shouted slogans such as "Justice" outside the Ministry of Interior building. Video footage on social media purportedly showing the fire prompted angry questions such as why the mostly Central American migrant men were fatally trapped inside, even as authorities said that they had safely evacuated all the women from their section. The blood of Afghan refugees was projected onto London's St. Paul's Cathedral in a protest against Prince Harry's admission that he killed 25 Taliban fighters during his military service in Afghanistan. The stunt, organized by a Russian artist, saw a recording of a sculpture of the Royal Coat of Arms being filled with blood projected onto the side of the cathedral in his autobiography, published in January. Harry recounted his 2 tours in Afghanistan, where he killed 25 people whom he didn't see as people but chess pieces to be removed. 2 Afghan refugees living in Calais and 6 Afghans living in the UK donated their blood, with 1.75 litres used in the final project. Britain's immigration minister stated that the UK government plans to set up basic accommodation for migrants who cross the English Channel in small boats and military barracks and vessels. Speaking in front of lawmakers, the immigration minister said that the government wanted to relieve what he believes is an eye-watering burden on taxpayers by housing asylum seekers in hotels. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has made tackling the arrival of small boats one of his main priorities, hoping his move to get tough on illegal migration will win over voters before an election expected next year. Britain's King Charles III spoke of warmth of friendship between the United Kingdom and Germany. Charles is on a 3-day visit to Berlin, Brandenburg in the east and northern port city of Hamburg. According to a Buckingham Palace, the new king will attend engagements reflecting issues facing both countries such as environmental sustainability and the Ukraine crisis, and will also commemorate the past. Czech labour unions have joined forces with opposition parties to rally against changes in the pension system considered by the government. Scores of protesters gathered in front of the government office in Prague to voice their disapproval over an option to raise the retirement age to up to 68 years. The Czech Labour and Social Affairs Minister appeared to backtrack from the original proposal, but his ministry said in a statement that the 68-year age limit is on the negotiation table. The government is yet to finalize on its plans for the pension reform, which it said is needed to make the system sustainable. Clashes broke out in Chile's capital, Santiago, as demonstrators marked the annual Day of the Young Combatant. Dozens of protesters, most of them high school students, had to pull back when police vehicles fired water cannons to clear the march. According to local media, 27 people have been detained so far in marches across the capital city. The clashes have become an annual part of the Day of the Young Combatant, which is commemorated by a number of social organizations. The day recognizes March 29th in memory of 2 young brothers, Rafael and Eduardo. They were killed by police in 1985 demonstration against the Augusto Pinochet dictatorship. Protesters took to the streets of Tel Aviv despite Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's pause on plans to overhaul the judiciary. Many of those protesting said plans announced earlier in the day to establish a separate National Guard had brought them out to protest. This new force would come under the authority of hardline National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir. Opposition parties spanning the political spectrum, they've accused Netanyahu, who is on trial on corruption charges, of seeking to curb judicial independence. However, he denies any wrongdoing. The Enhanced Forward Presence Battle Group in Latvia held a NATO military training exercise from the 20th of March to the 31st of March. 10 nations are taking part in the Crystal Arrow exercises aimed at improving cooperation between the armed forces of NATO countries. US troops participated in the drill alongside 9 countries, part of the Canadian-led multinational battle group in Latvia, Albania, Czech Republic, Italy, Montenegro, Poland, Slovakia, Spain and Slovenia. Spanish forces also displayed their middle-range defense system deployed in Latvia's base. Finnish aircraft took part in NATO exercises in Estonia alongside French, Dutch and Estonian fighter jets. The Finnish FA-18 jets visited the Amari Air Base, home to NATO's Baltic Air Policing detachments, for the first time since 2019. Finland's ambassador in Estonia said he was pleased with Hungary ratifying Helsinki's membership into the alliance. Hungary's parliament approved a bill allowing Finland to join NATO once its application has been ratified by all 30 members of the alliance. This comes after Turkish president stated last week that Turkey's parliament would also start ratifying Finland's accession. The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency has said that the protection of Ukraine's nuclear power plant was necessary and possible as fears mount regarding a possible nuclear disaster. Moscow and Kiev have repeatedly accused each other of shelling the site of the power station over the last year. The IAEA head has been pushing for a safety agreement between Ukraine and Russia to protect the facility. The sprawling Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant was a prized part of Ukraine's energy network and accounted for around 20% of the national power generation before the Russian invasion. A top Chinese virologist and immunologist has claimed that China has released all the data about COVID-19, and this comes amidst wide speculation that China is not sharing enough information concerning the COVID-19 origin. A World Health Organization expert group claimed last year that key pieces of data to explain how the pandemic began was still missing. The scientists cited avenues of research that were needed. This included studies evaluating the role of wild animals and the environmental studies in places where the virus might have first spread. Moving on, the United Nations General Assembly voted to pass a resolution asking the world's top court to define the obligations of states to combat climate change. The historic resolution was inspired by Pacific Island law students who want the international legal system to deliver climate justice. The push for the resolution was driven by Vanuatu Prime Minister and a core group of 18 countries ranging from Costa Rica to Germany. It could take the court around 18 months to issue an advisory opinion, which could clarify financial obligations countries have on climate change. An unusual thunder snowstorm was responsible for late spring snow that fell in Toronto. The thunder snow is when thunder and snow fall at the same time. It's the second time this winter this relatively rare event has occurred in Ontario. The bursts of wind and snow left only a few centimeters of snow, but the cold, snowy weather may continue through the night, accumulating more snow. Peruvians in northern Peru face the aftermath of heavy rain in the region. Heavy rain pushed vehicles across an overflowing river and caused destruction to property. Assessing damages to infrastructure and trying to salvage their belongings and flooded homes. Peruvians are struggling to get on their feet once again. According to local media, some towns endured a 4-hour-long storm, with 25 high-risk creeks getting activated as a consequence. According to Peru's Civil Defense Institute, at least 60 people have died in Peru since the start of the rainy season late last year. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.